I would like to thank the committee for the fearless and frankly quite reckless manner in which they provided me access to a mic, a podium, and a captive audience. Isn't it good to be able to smell each other again, hey? Coffee and cigarettes, that's a sweet, sweet smell of sobriety. So I'm hoping today that my share is like a Quentin Tarantino movie, like Pulp Fiction, where you have these seemingly unrelated storylines that converge and bisect right at the end, and you go, I'm hoping that's what happens. But it might be a little bit more like an IT specialist giving a talk on blockchain and cryptocurrency, so we'll see. So if you will indulge me, can we just bow our heads in a very, very quick prayer? God, please let it be Quentin Tarantino. Amen. It's okay. It's okay. My God has got a sense of humor. He'll understand. One Saturday, I was sitting in the bath with a shotgun and a 5-liter box wine. No laughs. Okay. Only half my stories start that way. So I was sitting in the bath with a shotgun and a 5-liter wine. And what I used to do, I'd put the music on and I'd have speakers in my bathroom and I'd take the foil out of the wine and I'd put it bubbles in the jacuzzi bath and I'd watch it go round and round and round. And every now and again I'd grab it and I'd fill up my glass of wine. And that was my idea of how to spend a lovely Saturday morning. And I ran a business from home and my staff knew I was drunk. So they were busy working and the workshop backed up onto my bathroom window and they were playing music really, really loud. And I decided that perhaps the best way to get them to turn the volume down would be if I shot the shotgun through the ceiling, which I then proceeded to do. It does work. It does turn the volume on the radio down. And so I did that. And then I went back to watching the foil go round and round and round and round and have a drink. And then I heard a voice as if speaking to me through a tunnel. And it said, "Sit die wapen neer." And my first thought was, God, you speak Afrikaans? And then I heard it again, "Sit die wapen neer." And I looked up and there was a pistol at my head. And at the other end of the pistol, there was a really big cop. And I, demonstrating that superior intellect we like to brag about here in AA, demonstrating that superior intellect, I decided to jump out of the bath naked and try and outrun 6 cops. It only took 2 of them to bring me to the ground. So I tell you that story for a couple of reasons. Kids, don't play with guns in the bath. And lastly and most importantly is to tell you this, that was the beginning of one of the most horrendous weekends of my life. What us Catholics like, and Sister Ignatia spoke of, the dark night of the soul. And I can stand here today and make jokes about it and I can laugh about it. And I'm glad for that day today because that day brought me one step closer to you. And you cannot enjoy summer without winter. We cannot enjoy sobriety without the drinking and the suffering that came before it. There's a place in Johannesburg where I drive past, not often, but now and again I will drive past it. And whenever I do, I get chills because as a young woman, I would walk in the dark to this pub and I would drink and I'd walk home in the dark again. And there were some nights when I was the only woman in that bar and nothing ever happened to me, and I get chills when I go past it. That so much things could have happened to me and they never did. And I know, even though I didn't know it at the time, God had my back in that bath. God had my back when I was walking those nights in the dark. And He's got your back too, whether you know it or not. And so sexual abuse is no laughing matter. You heard my story. It's not as if I didn't put myself out there. Nothing bad ever happened to me. And when everybody around you has been sexually abused and you're not, it starts getting to a point where it's almost offensive. And you're like, okay, what's wrong with me? I've almost wanted to start, why the hell not Me Too movement. How do you go from a bath drunk next to a mine dump in the East Rand of South Africa all the way to a podium in one of the most beautiful cities in the world next to Cape Town, next to Table Mountain? How do you go from the mine dump to Table Mountain? Well, you better start walking today because it took me 15 years. How do you do it? Well, you come to meetings so old men can hit on you. You get a sponsor and you do the opposite of everything they tell you. You steal a big book. You don't have to read the big book. No, you don't. If you go to bed at night and you've got a bedside table, you put it in such an angle and you tilt your head strategically so that while you're sleeping, you can absorb the information through osmosis. So don't read the book. Then you do service. And when they tell you we are trusted servants, we do not govern, you can quit in disgust. And when someone recommends you read the book, Not God, you refuse on the grounds that based on the title, you don't think it applies to you. So, and if you're 5 years sober and you haven't done the steps, I can understand it. They hid it really well. They put it in the book. And then they had the audacity to print it on a 1.5 by 1 meter poster that they tend to put at eye level directly behind the main speaker at each and every meeting. So we can understand why you haven't gotten around to them. You just can't find them. And so the steps are in the big book, right? And all except one. There's one step that they didn't put in the big book. The 13th step was so obvious. No one had to tell us about it. They didn't even need to write it down because we managed to figure that one out for ourselves. And for those of you who are new and you don't know what the 13th step is, I'm going to give you a visual demonstration. So this is the 13th step. Hello. That was a lovely meeting. Yes, it was. You look so cute in those jeans. Thank you. Would you like to go and have some coffee and discuss the steps? I'd love it. So I 13 stepped someone when I came into AA. He couldn't stop smiling for 2 years. And then I married him and he hasn't smiled since. I'd like to tell you our love affair was like a romance novel where he ripped the bodice off my heaving bosom, made wild, passionate love to me, and later as he lay in my arms, crying uncontrollably, with me consoling him, there. He was crying, of course, because it was such a spiritual experience for him. In that, he chose that moment to propose, but it was a little bit more primitive and medieval than that. He took me for a test drive to see if I was fertile. I turned out to be fertile. I clubbed him over the head and dragged his ass to the nearest Home Affairs department. And we lived happily ever after, the end. My sponsor told me as long as you stay sober, there is always hope. There's always hope. So I'm hopeful. I might have to wait for this one to die. And with my luck, when I'm 80 years old, some pervert in the old age home who's 90 will propose and I'll say yes. And I swear to God, I'm going to be an 80-year-old walking down the aisle with a princess tulle ballroom gown, a tiara, a veil, and a 20-foot long train, and probably a walker as well. They'll have to put Here Comes the Bride on repeat. Do you see how cleverly I wove that theme of hope into there? Stay sober and there's hope. So I found the secret. So I got me a husband in AA, and I thought all I ever wanted to be was a mother my whole life. Even as a young child, I wanted to be a mother. And I thought things like a husband, a job, a child was just not something that was for other people. I thought there's something so fundamentally wrong with me that those things that so many other people can have with ease was just not meant for me because there was something so very, very wrong for me. But then I got me a husband in AA. And I've learned the secret to a happy marriage. You must both not want to get divorced at the exact same moment, and you'll be fine. And I find that our differences complement each other. I mean, we share the fellowship because we're both in the program, which is wonderful. He's an exceptional cook. I eat, so that works out. He's sane. I'm interesting. I have opinions. He tells me what they should be. So my son turns 13 today. And we have an agreement. And the agreement is my job is to embarrass him between 13 and 18 as much as I like. And he doesn't need to talk to me until he's 22. So I'll have to deal with that later. But he's an AA baby. He has not seen, he grew up in Alcoholics Anonymous. He is a product of you guys. He is a product of this program. I did not know how to be a human being. I did not know how to be a mother, but you taught me how to do all of that. He's an AA baby. He thinks being an alcoholic is a good thing because he has not, no, he does. That one wasn't a joke, by the way. No, he thinks being an alcoholic is a good thing. He has not experienced it as a negative thing. Because he has never seen either of his parents drunk, thanks to you guys. He's an AA baby and he's magnificent. So through the period of, through the years of sobriety, there have been many more moments of joy, of fun, of happiness, of laughter, of adventures. But life is hard. Life is hard whether you drink or whether you're sober, life happens. And God, as I told you, that I always wanted to be a mom. And God has given me children and he's taken children away from me in sobriety. I was pregnant and we were away at an AA retreat and the pregnancy had been very, very difficult. And I woke up at about 2:00 in the morning and I knew I was going to lose my baby. And I waited for a while and I knew it. And I woke my husband up and I said to him, you need to take me to a hospital. And he said, we can't. We've got so many kilometers of dirt road. There's no lighting. We don't know the area. There's so many potholes. Let's just wait until it gets lighter. And so we waited. And so we waited for it to get lighter. And then we made our way to the hospital. And when we got to the hospital, my son was still little. And I don't even know who was looking after him. I think the nurse was sitting at the reception with him while my husband came in with me. And the doctor examined me. And I looked up and I saw him looking at my husband and shaking his head. And I saw my husband get tears in his eyes. And I knew I was going to lose that baby. And they wheeled me into a room and they left me there. And I was completely alone. My husband couldn't be with me because he was with our small son. And I gave birth to a dead baby all by myself. And I lay there, which was probably about 15, 20 minutes with the baby between my legs alone. And I was screaming, somebody help me. Somebody please come help me. And it felt like a lifetime, but it was probably 15, 20 minutes. And I didn't know how to deal with that. And I came home and I hated God. For about 2 days I laid in bed. And after, I think about on the third day, I went to a meeting and I told the story at the meeting. And I said, I don't know why. I don't know why God did this to me. And God spoke to me and through me. And I said, perhaps the only thing I can take from this is not once did I ever think of having a drink. Not once. And if bad stuff happens to you and that's the only thing you can say about it, that's a hell of a thing to be able to. If I broke a nail, I wanted to drink about it. My baby died, and I didn't even once think of having a drink about it, you know. And we fostered 2 beautiful little blonde-haired, hazel-eyed girls, 3 and 4. And the little one, the 3-year-old, when I used to put her to sleep at night, she would fall asleep and at about 9:30 she would start crying. She wouldn't even wake up. In her sleep she would cry. And I'd go to her and I'd say, baby, what's the matter? And she'd say, Daddy's hurting me. Daddy's hurting me. These were girls that were sexually, physically abused and neglected by their parents. And the courts, in their infinite wisdom, waited long enough for that little girl to stop having nightmares, long enough for her sister to be able to spill something on the floor without standing, shaking in absolute fear of the consequences, long enough for us to love them and for them to be a part of our family. And they sent them back. And we were at a coincide where we were going to an AA weekend away that weekend. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I had nightmares of those girls in that home again. And just being in, I didn't even talk much that weekend, but just being near you guys helped me get through that. You know, bad things happen and you don't need to drink about it. Just about the children thing, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, my niece came up to myself and my husband and said, if anything happens to me and my husband, will you take care of my 2 children? She didn't ask her grandmother, her 2 grandmothers, her grandparents. She didn't ask her any other uncles and aunts. She didn't also ask my alcoholic brother and sister-in-law, but she asked us to take care of her kids. And this is for a person that people wouldn't leave their pot plant alone with. I'm not saying leave me to take care of the pot plant. I'm not saying give me the responsibility to water the pot plant. I'm saying just leaving me alone in the same room with the pot plant. And now people are giving me kids, So life is hard, but we don't drink about it. My husband and myself, we went to a wedding, and I thought it would be a really fun joke if, as the wife, the bride walked down the aisle, I played porn really, really loud, and he wouldn't let me. It's like, no, you can't do that. Life is hard. I don't drink about it. And I played chess with my son, and there is nothing that is guaranteed to make a chess nerd malfunction than if you call the knight the horse. So what? No, they start glitching. They start glitching. And I want to enter a chess tournament just so that I can sit across from the very first opponent and say, can the horsey teleport? And just watch the reaction. But again, I live with 2 boys. They won't let me do anything. My son says, no, Mom, you can't do that. Life is hard. I don't drink about it. So I told you where to find the steps. Do the steps. I say coming to AA meetings without doing the steps is like sex without orgasm. It's still nice, but you're kind of missing the point. Do you know, when I was in school, one of the very few teacher-parents meetings my mom attended, I overheard the teacher telling my mom, you need to get your daughter help. She is so painfully shy and quiet. As you can see, I still struggle with it. So let me just go back to the theme of hope. I'm very hopeful that one day I will have that beautiful wedding. Stay sober, there's hope. This hope to faith is our theme, right? So what I learned in coming into AA is you told me, hand it over, pray to God, let go and let God. So I started doing what you said. I had a problem. I prayed about it. I gave it to God, and I was hopeful that He would do something, and then He delivered. I had a problem. I prayed to God. I handed it over. I was hopeful He would do something, and then He delivered. You do that enough times, it becomes, I have a problem. I pray to God. I hand it over. I have faith that He will deliver. But He sometimes take a lot. He will deliver, but sometimes it doesn't come in the right color, or the right shape, or the right size. And it doesn't quite look like the picture you had in your mind. So, something my sponsor said to me, put your trust, I told you, God has got your back. He's had my back in sobriety and whilst I was drinking. Put your trust in God, because I am fallible, but He is not. And stick around for the spiritual orgasm. Thank you.